Hello, it's Mo back in the Matthew's Friends Keto Kitchen, and today I'm making donuts, and these are based on the bread roll recipe, which has been very successful, so I'm hoping that this is going to prove to be the same. Very simple to make, really, and I'm going to start off with ground almonds and psyllium husks, which is a fantastic ingredient for binding stuff together. And then in here I have barcat baking powder with just a tiny pinch of salt. I'm going to give those a mix just to make sure that the barcat gets right throughout and the psyllium husk. And turn up my cooker because I'm going to be needing boiling water for this. Now in here I have egg white, and you may see this here. This is a pack of egg whites, which is very useful if you don't want to be using up egg yolks. There's a trace of carbohydrate in these, but it's not enough to worry about, but you can include it in your ratio if you need to. In with the egg white, I'm going to add some white wine vinegar and some homoceta sweetener. This is a sweet dough. And just give that a little whisk. You can of course use the eggs from fresh if you've got a use for the egg yolk. But I just thought I'd mention this because it's quite a useful ingredient to be using in keto. Now I can see that that's just coming up to the boil, so I'm going to add this to the dry ingredients. Make sure it's all out. And just combine it in just to get it started off. It looks like a dough, almost like that. But when I add this hot water, you'll see what happens next. That's hot enough now. So I'm going to just add the boiling water. And then you just give it a good mix. It looks horrendous, but it does come together quite quickly as a dough. Give that a scrape down, make sure you've got all the dry bits off the back of the spatula. When it starts to thicken up, which is it's doing that now, don't be quite so vigorous with it because we want to try and keep as much lightness in the dough as we can. And can you see that that is now forming a nice soft dough? That's the psyllium husk doing its job, absorbing all the moisture. Now when you do this, at this point, you'd weigh that, and of course the best way of doing that is weigh the bowl first, and then put the whole thing on the scales, subtract the weight of the bowl. You know what the dough weighs, and then you would divide it into equal portions so that you know what you're eating. And I would suggest either 4 portions for a nice big donut or 6 for some smaller snack size ones. Now I'm not going to bore you with the weighing. I'm just going to divide it into 4. When you think you've got 4 equal ones, just check on my oil, which is getting nice and hot here now. And as you can see, it more or less forms a donut itself. If you find that it's sticking to your fingers, you can just wet them. Now I hope I'm going to get a nice sizzle now. Oh yes. another. But these will take about 8 minutes to cook, and I suggest that you keep turning them, and if you think the fat is getting too hot, you just turn it down a little. In there I have vegetable oil, and when I started off I weighed about 200, well, it was 200 grams of oil. And what I do after, when these are cooked, I weigh the oil that's left, and then that way you'll know how much has gone into the recipe. And if it works out as it did before for me, it absorbs about 40 grams of oil. Now obviously you may need to know exactly, but of course oil is not quite so crucial as the carbohydrate. But you can see that they're going to be sizzling away there. That's about, see how they're going there, that's about how you want it. So it's a fairly hot oil. So I'm going to fill these doughnuts with jam, and it's keto jam, and you can make this yourself. It's very simple. You can of course buy sugar reduced jam on the markets today, and they're fine, but they do have carb in, so you'd have to count them. Now in here I've got raspberries, which of course are very low in carb. You can use any fruit you like so long as you count it. Frozen raspberries are fine. Now they will go on and they will sizzle away there. They're making liquid already. It's a good idea just to add a little water, and about 30 ml should do it. Yeah. Now when they start to break down, it's quite a good idea to use a potato masher or something like that if you really want to squish them up, but raspberries go down so easily. There's really no need. The back of a spoon is fine, or a spatula. I'm just going to give the doughnuts a flip over. You can see that they're browning off really nicely. So when this has come to a boil, which of course it's taken a little bit longer because they were frozen and very cold, I'm going to use some sweetener, and you can use any sweetener you like really. You can use granules, stevia granules, Natvia, Hermesitas liquid. But for today I'm going to use some Truvia. And about 4 teaspoonfuls of this will do it. But of course you can test it. It depends on the sweetness of the fruit that you're using and how sweet you would like the jam. That should be plenty. Now that's bubbling away. Now if you wanted a seedless jam, this is the time to sieve it. You can just run it through a normal sieve to get rid of any of the pips. Some people just like the pips, don't they? You still buy it in the shops with the pips in. And of course it means you've got the whole fruit as well if you do leave the pips in. Now what we use for thickening is xanthan gum. Now you've probably heard of this. Now that's boiled. So I'm going to take it off the heat and put it on my board here. Now, how much you use of this is up to you. It depends on the set that you want. If you want a soft jam, then half a teaspoonful is enough. If you'd like it a bit firmer, then a teaspoonful. Now, the best tip I can give you for this is don't put it all in one go. The best thing to do is just to sprinkle it over the surface, because if you put it all in one go, it'll clump up and then you'll have a mess. And as soon as you've done that, you stir it in and it starts to dissolve down. And then, just like any other jam that you make, you can put this straight into a sterilised jar and it will keep in your refrigerator. Well, I've kept it for 6 weeks and it's been fine. So there you've got nice fresh raspberry keto jam. It will be when it's set. Now the doughnuts I think will be done now. Put the jam to one side. I'm not putting this into a jar today. I don't have to explain that to you, but you know what to do. I'm going to get the doughnuts out. I've got a spoon here. Now, if you were doing some things, you'd put these onto absorbent paper, but we try and keep as much of the fat on as we can, so we just take them out. They look a little bit like doughnuts, don't they?